Well, Zooch, it's episode 1. We finally got this thing together.
We do. We have our outlet to talk about a bunch
Our
of things
outlet.
that only people like us care about.
Oh, I have so much to get on my chest. Well, anyone listening, this is episode 1 of the Zooch and Wilde podcast, college football podcast. A little extension of the Settle Down podcast. So, my name is Diego Wild. Love college football, and we've been talking to Sean and Zooch for a while, and this is, like Zooch said, an outlet for us. I don't know, Zooch can get into more specifics for him, but especially for me, this is going to be an outlet for me that I needed because I have had too much energy wound up, and I need someone, I need somewhere to release all this energy, or I'm going to end up running through a wall, Zooch.
Oh, exactly. No, I know exactly how you feel. It's one of those things that with college football specifically, since I was a kid, I've always thought about it all year long, loved to talk with anyone about any team, that type of thing. So I'm excited to have a platform just to do that and hopefully people listen.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're hoping for too. I mean, week 0, there's not much. There's a few games we'll get into later on. We'll have some segments at the very end that hopefully become recurring segments that you guys like. But before we get into that, we're gonna talk about the Swamp Kings documentary and how Kim Jong Urban Meyer pretty much just released a propaganda piece for the Florida Gators. Zooch, being from Florida, being around Gainesville at that time, I'm sure you have a lot of opinions on this one.
I do, and it's mostly, like you said, a propaganda piece. And not as much Urban Meyer, but with Tim Tebow, people acted like he was a reincarnation of Jesus Christ. Like anything he did was perfect. He could say anything he wanted to. He
30
always
more minutes for the
chose
rest of
that.
your life, man. 30 more
Well, yeah,
minutes for the
not
rest of
even
your
just
life.
that. Like you saw with the documentary, which is why he started to get on. At first, I liked him. I'm like, oh, he's cool. Like he seems like a nice guy. Like a little bit different. Like has a lot of hype, but seems like he is up to the task. But just all throughout his career was like, and I see it even more now than I did when I was like a preteen. I'm guessing about the age I was when he started 2006. So yeah, I was like 12. It was always all about him. Like he couldn't even. He had to do the. And by the way, I'm coming back. He had to do that.
Yeah,
He,
I didn't see
and that's
that.
fine to me. That's fine to me. But then he would portray himself as this like humble, like
Yeah.
everyday quarterback, and it was like he had to give the speech after losing to Old Miss, the speech, the I'm coming back speech, the locker room Oklahoma speech, the like pumping up the fans when he got off the bus. It was just always like pointing. He said in the thing, the pointing to his heart. Like, come on, dude. Like, yes, you were really good, but your team was also littered with talent, and you cried and your coach quit after Nick Saban kicked your ass.
Yeah. Um. No, I actually wrote down a couple of things. A couple takeaways from the documentary for me. Number one is that Chris Leak looks like the biggest loser in the world. Oh,
I liked
they
Chris
made
Lee.
him. They made him look so bad. And they're like, Urban's offense. You need a quarterback to run the ball, and like they made Chris Leak like walking boot Ben Roethlisberger, like he couldn't move at all. He was just.
Chris,
If I
I
was
never
Chris
thought he was
Leak,
that bad.
I would be a little salty of how I was portrayed. The second thing is it confirmed all suspicions that Urban Meyer is a scumbag. Um, but it's a scumbag in a way where it's almost comical, like it's a comedy movie. Like you just were watching like the Champions Club, like you had your starters eating steak, and then if you were like an incoming freshman, you just like fed them hot dogs, and it's just like I don't care about you. Like that is so comical, and it's confirmed everything I need to agree upon about Urban Meyer as a person. Great college football coach, but I don't know where the tweet was, or it might have just been some random reply, and someone was like, "This is why Urban Meyer didn't work at the pro level, because you can't have a champions club in the NFL.
No,
Like all those guys are champions. Like if you try to tell like a rookie who's like a third rounder, like oh like you're not worth nothing. That rookie is making millions of dollars. Just got drafted. Was probably one of the best players at his position in the league. Like you can't pull that BS with NFL players. I think that's why he failed miserably in the NFL.
no, and like there is big money specifically in the SEC, but when you get to the NFL, there's bigger like you're at that point dealing with billions of dollars, not just, millions. And from the moment he got to the Jags, he was he hired that one guy from Iowa that had just gotten fired for like 50 people coming out and saying that he was a racist. He did that. He had the thing he doesn't get back on the team playing for after they lose to the Bengals and is at the bar with that young college girl. And then it comes out that he kicked her. It was just always something with him. But that's the thing is, it was like that basically wherever he was in college too, and he's always been that way. Like he quit. So he says he's stepping down after they lose to Alabama after he has the heart issues. Decides to come back. The next season they go 8-5 or whatever. He steps down again and says he wants to spend more time with his family. And like 9 months later, he accepts the job at Ohio State.
Yeah,
He
no,
he is a he is more of a master of putting himself in good positions than I think he is as a football coach because he
I mean,
always knows like
he just commandeered what was supposed to be the best college football documentary since probably the U and the U Part Two. Like this was supposed to be the Florida version of the U in the U Part Two, and the only thing I learned was that Tiller like punched freshmen in the face in the or Siller punched freshmen in the face in the weight room. like
right. No,
I
that's
didn't
a
I didn't learn anything. Another thing I wrote down, the second thing I wrote down after watching it is boy do I love Dan Mullen, man. He is a funny guy. He's Dan Mullen. If there's one big winner from this whole documentary is Dan Mullen, whether he's sane or not, if you're the smartest person in a room full of toddlers, you don't have to be that smart. I think that's Dan Mullen in this whole thing. Like Dan Mullen comes across normal in a in a show full of the circus freaks of Gainesville.
well. You got that coaching staff is just funny to think about because you had
It is.
Urban
It
Meyer,
is.
Dan Mullen, Steve Adazio,
Yeah.
who in that one he gives his like pump up speech like no one even
Yeah.
I don't even remember it getting that loud during that part, and I'm pretty sure Charlie Strong was there.
Charlie
I know
Strong.
for a
That's what I
fact.
was gonna say. Charlie
He was
Strong,
there for
because
a fact.
he has the one clip of that where it's he's sitting on the sideline with Brandon Spikes, and it's just like Brandon Spikes out, and it's just like I'm like, is that Charlie Strong? And man, if you could have shown Florida Charlie Strong what he would become, I think he might have stopped coaching after those Tebow years.
I think so too.
All right, and then yeah, I'm gonna bring up this tweet real quick, and it's all the stuff that was left out. This is a tweet by at Jim M Weber, so shout out at Jim M Weber for tweeting this. And these are the things that were left out of the documentary, Zooch. Any mention of Aaron Hernandez besides Tebow taking blame for their fight in '07 at a bar? I mean, okay, like one of the most polarizing player on that team you're not going to mention. You have no mention of the Pouncey twins at all. I mean, they showed them in clips. No mention of the Pouncey twins. Percy Harvin attacking a wide receiver coach. I think they could have included that. That I think would have that's funny. Like I didn't know that until I read this tweet. That's funny. Cam Newton's stolen laptop. I mean, that people know about that, but that's a part of the integral story of like why Urban wasn't set up the best post Tebow because he was supposed to have Cam Newton post Tebow, but he had to
And
kick
he
him
had
off the
John
team.
Brantley instead.
Yeah, John Brantley. Oh my goodness. Um, wow, sorry, I need to take a breath after remembering John Brantley. Oh my. And then Carlos Dunlap arrested before the 2009 SEC championship game. You already touched on the Urban Meyer and his heart problems and his wishy-washy back and forth. Riley Cooper, not a single mention of Riley Cooper,
Nope.
who after Percy Harvin left that 2009 year, he was the main guy. He was the main guy
Yeah.
in the passing attack for that team. Just no mention of that. And then the part that you actually texted me that is in this tweet is Chris Rainey threatening to kill his girlfriend, which I get it, but they also had Chris Rainey in the documentary. So I'm wondering if, because there was a lot of key people who didn't speak. I think if Chris Rainey was like, I'm only going to be in this if you don't talk about like what I did. And I think that was my final thoughts were like, if I could sum up my opinion of this documentary, it was the story of the people who were in it and not the people who weren't. Everyone in it wanted to only show the good stuff, and the people that they left out, like the Percy Harvins, the Cam Newtons, the people who actually could have told the real story, they left out. So that part of the story
Right.
didn't get told, and Urban Meyer gets to twist his nipples and pleasure himself to 4 straight episodes of Let's Go Urban Meyer.
Right, and blame it all. And this is what my final thought is on it. You have like Miami, and the U documentaries came out, and they kind of embrace like, yeah, we were in trouble all the time. We were getting arrested every other day. Like they kind of made that their personality. And then you have Urban Meyer, who said, I only let these things happen because I kicked one guy off the team, and he ended up dying. That's basically what Urban Meyer said. Oh, that stuff only happened because I felt bad that I kicked this guy off the team and he died. Just embrace it. Like every college football team has guys who get in trouble. Like every season, if you are a fan of a team, you will see like the beat reporter or whoever tweet, "Oh, so and so got arrested," and 9 times out of 10, I feel like it's a DUI or they underage drinking, something like that. But Florida literally had Aaron Hernandez shooting at people, and it was just glossed over in the doc. Like they didn't even mention it in the documentary, and that was the night that Tim Tebow took him home.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I guess we can only hope for HBO to do a documentary or something, because I really would like to see what actually did some of the stuff that went down. But enough of just listening to Urban Meyer spew poop from his mouth. Let's jump into week 0. We got football back. I'm excited. It is week 0. Did you see the tweets? The tweet that was going around, and it was like some pro football elitist, I think, and he was like, "Man, just saw this slate of week 0 games. If you watch this, you're sick." And it was like 1,000 quote tweets of just Hugh Freeze in a hospital bed in the press box.
I did see
And I'm
that,
like,
and I will do that. I'm just counting down the days. I'm like, all right, I have work tomorrow. Get off. We have some plans tomorrow night, and then Saturday I cannot wait to watch the Notre Dame game. I cannot wait to watch Louisiana Tech and FIU, all of it. I can't wait just to see the
SDSU playing
SDSU
Ohio for the Mountain West fellas out there. But we each picked one main storyline going into this week, and I think it's obvious for me what the main storyline is. It's Caleb Williams is playing San Jose State. The first game, it's going to be one of the first games that Saturday. Oh, or is it an evening game?
It's an evening game. It's on Pac-12 Network.
Because you're going to get into that later. And Caleb Williams, this is the first Heisman Trophy winner that's coming back to play since, correct me if I'm wrong, Lamar Jackson? I think every Heisman winner since then. Yeah, it's the first time in a while that we're gonna have this level of hype. And Caleb Williams, he's such a polarizing player. I mean, there was a quote today where he's like, "I don't know if I'm gonna be in the new NCAA game." I mean, I haven't formed an opinion on him as a person. I have already formed an opinion on him as a player because he's the best player in the country by far. And San Jose State, I mean, I feel so bad because they could be a good program, but I think they're going to be so out of their league in this game. I think if I have a prediction for Caleb Williams is he is going to make one of those plays that gets a billion views all over social media, where he spins out of the pocket and does all of that. Honestly, if you're San Jose State, you just have to keep it respectable. I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about San Jose State because they did have a respectable season. They got to the Potato Bowl last year, which for them is good. But I think they're just going to get outclassed, and I think Caleb Williams is going to show why he's the best player in the country on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that it's a big story because USC is one of those teams that I don't like USC. In fact, when I grew up, I hated USC, but USC is one of those programs that when they're good, even if I hate it, it makes college football better. There's a few teams like that that when they're good, and like USC, who should be good, returning the best player in college football makes for good storylines
Mm-hmm.
going into the season. So I'm definitely excited to see. I think that's the type of game that either USC is up like 28-0 in the first quarter, or for some reason it's 28-24 at halftime, and then
So
USC ends up winning like 63-31.
here's my prediction. I think it's going to be a little bit less than that. I think it'll be like 14-28 at halftime. And who's the defensive coordinator for USC? It's that guy that Lincoln Riley always has brought around. I'll tell you what. I don't. He must be really good at brown nosing because he must have like classified documents that could like threaten Lincoln Riley's career because Lincoln Riley has just brought him around everywhere. And he just continues like Lincoln Riley's just like, oh, the defense is getting better. The defense is getting better. And the defense did finally get better. If the defense is not good this year for USC, Lincoln Riley, I'm sorry, you got to fire your boy. I will get his name while Zooch
Yeah,
brings up his top storyline for the for week 0.
so my top one, along with what I was saying about USC when they're good, it makes college football better, is Notre Dame. They have a lot of hype with Marcus Freeman. They brought in Sam Hartman from Wake Forest, which he's been really good. He was just stuck at Wake Forest, which is a hard place to win at. So it'll be
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see. I feels like one of those games that you're going to kind of know a lot about Notre Dame pretty quickly. Like if that's Navy used to be really good. Like even on they might not always go 11-1, but Navy used to be a tough out. Navy's been bad for the last 3 or so years. So if Notre Dame comes out and struggles in that, I think their expectations are going to get tempered a little bit, especially since they play Clemson, Ohio State, USC. They have a pretty brutal schedule. But if Notre Dame comes out and wins 49-7, then they're going to be as hyped as any other team coming into the season.
I think an underrated part of this storyline is that Notre Dame's playing in Ireland. How many drunk Irish people who you think don't give two butts about college football are just going to be partying around that stadium? I mean, if that is going to be one of the top, forget week 0, I think that's going to be a top environment week 1 or 0 just to watch a game. Notre Dame in Ireland, are you kidding me? That is going to be that sounds like a blast to me.
That, and I was a couple of weeks ago, maybe about a month or so ago, I was looking at tickets for that game. Not that I was going to go, but I was like, I wonder how much tickets are to like these games in Ireland. The cheapest one I could find was like $700. So it sounds like it's going to be pretty packed out. And it's not only Notre Dame, but you have Navy. So I'm sure you're going to get a lot of guys who were in the Navy, or even some guys who went to the Naval Academy that are like, oh yeah, we'll go out to Ireland for a week and go to the game, see them play, because that's a little bit. South Bend's cool, but I'd much rather, if I was a fan of Navy, go to Dublin, Ireland to watch them play. Because if you lose, you're like, all right, well, we're gonna go out to all the bars and sightsee and have a good time.
Yeah, Notre Dame, and plus they got the absolute show that we got in Ireland last year that they have to follow up. So, I mean, I don't think that's like the guy who's got to replace Babe Ruth is what Notre Dame Navy has to be in this game in Ireland. And for folks who didn't watch that game last year versus Northwestern in Nebraska, good for you because good for you in the sense that you probably still have a couple brain cells. Bad for you when I tell you it was the worst, best game I've ever seen. And if I can just get a fraction of that stupidness, I think I'll be satisfied in this game.
Oh, I hope there's another for some reason up 17 or whatever they were, onside kick like
Yeah,
Nebraska
yeah.
tried to pull.
Oh my
And the
gosh.
funny part about that is I guarantee you Scott Frost was like, "This is an ingenious idea I have right here. We're gonna onside kick it and recover it and just take all the momentum." And that basically got him fired. Like, that just
Yeah.
wrecked their whole
It
season.
was
Pat
just it
Fitzgerald
was
never
just
won a game again.
and now yeah, dude, both those teams just ended up being epic losers from that game. I mean, you got Pat
Yeah.
Fitzgerald, Shrek boy, who who likes to who I mean, if you listen to this podcast, you probably follow sports enough to know that the whole Northwestern hazing scandal and how Pat Fitzgerald's gone, and now how Scott Frost is gone. I mean, it was brutal. I think the ghost of Tom Osborne was just in Scott Frost's ear going, do the onside kick, Frost. Do it. And then he's like, I got you, Tom Osborne. And then just messed up his whole game. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was I don't even remember any other games that were on week 0 last year except for that one. Like, it was like the first game of the day and everything, and it was just it's even more funny now to look back on, and, like, you knew and it was, like, weird with Nebraska because they had this hype again. It was like, "Alright, they have to win now." Like, Scott Frost, that was, like, his 6th season, and he hadn't even been to a bowl game. Have to win now. They brought in
Casey
the guy was from
Thompson.
Nebraska. Yeah, or is
Casey
it
Thompson.
or he wasn't from
Texas.
Nebraska. He was from Texas, yeah. Had all this hype behind him, and then to lose that way, it was just you knew he was gonna get fired after that. Like, I honestly think if they had won that game, their season might have played out differently, but you
100%.
go in
100%.
you go in and lose to Northwestern. That is not a team that Nebraska can lose to. It's Northwestern. They're like or used to be a perennial power and like a program that dominated for a couple decades, and then they're losing to Nebraska and Dublin, Ireland. So things
No, yeah.
change quickly.
Northwestern. Yeah. Well, at least Darren Ravel was happy. Any other small week 0 stories you want to get into? I mean, I know we're gonna touch on a couple, but I guess SDSU Ohio. That should be a decent game.
Yeah, I think that
I mean, I don't
yeah,
know.
that one will be interesting just based on I guess seeing how like I don't know a ton about Ohio, but at SDSU their defense is always really, really good. If they could ever just figure out their offense, which that the quarterback they have this year is supposed to be pretty good. So if they could figure out their offense, I honestly think they could contend for a New Year's Six bowl. But until they can score more than 14 points a game, that's just not going to happen for them because they've had some great defenses. I mean, yeah, like for years they like we both went to Boise State, and for years they've given us fits, even when we had really good offenses. It was like going into that game, like, oh, I hope we can get to like 20 points or something like that. Then, like my freshman year,
Yeah.
we played them, and if we won that game, we were going to go to the Orange Bowl, and they won like 20-19 or something like that, and they won off of like kickoff return touchdown and a return touchdown
Yeah.
and a one offensive touchdown. But they just
Well,
and our defense was great that year too,
yeah.
but
They
it was
managed.
just couldn't score against them.
I remember my freshman year. They made Brett Rippon look like he couldn't play in college, even though he was an NFL prospect. He's doing a great job backupping in NFL. They made him look like he had never thrown a football before. Yeah, so STSU always dangerous, and Ohio's no slouch either. I don't know a lot about them, but I know they were bowl eligible last year. They were playing in the Barstool Bowl last year, so that'll be a solid matchup, I think, between two pretty even teams, looking to kind of like jumpstart themselves in their conference play. Yeah.
Yep.
Getting into week 0, we're going to bring you a segment. It's going to be a weekly segment. It's going to be called Meme Matchup of the Week. Me and Zooch are both going to choose one meme matchup, whether it be a team, whether it be a player, whether it be a personal matchup that one of us has. It's the meme matchup of the week. And I know we already kind of touched on Zooch's being somewhat tied to USC. So, Zooch, what is your meme matchup of the week?
Mine is the Pac-12 and all other conferences, Power 5 conferences, I guess I should say, in college football. So as we mentioned earlier, USC is going to be a top 5 team. returning a Heisman Trophy winner, and they are playing on the Pac-12 network, while New Mexico State and UMass, keep in mind UMass has not won over 2 games in like 5 years, are the primetime slot on ESPN. And I would understand almost if it was Pac-12 network and you had, Miami and Florida State was in that spot that New Mexico State and UMass are on. But no one else is playing at that time except those 2 teams. I don't love the realignment stuff, but if I'm looking at it from like USC's perspective, I'm like, if we go join the Big Ten, there's no like that Northwestern Nebraska game
It's,
was on Fox last year.
yeah, it's just so
So it's just like you
ridiculous.
can't. Yeah,
It's
you cannot. USC is a huge brand. They should. I don't think USC is a team that should ever be on the Pac-12 network. Regardless, you find a way to get them national. I don't even the Pac-12 network. I don't think I've ever had the Pac-12 network in my life. I don't know if I'm sure it's a
it's
little bit
only
different
West
on the
Coast.
West Coast,
It's so
but like,
it comes, but it is way. It's like Brad, where the HBO channels are, and I mean, even if it's not USC, let's say it's just, let's say if it was even a smaller brand starting, let's say Oregon State was starting the year versus San Jose State. You have the Heisman Trophy winner on your team, and you can't
right?
get them on national television. I mean, this is why teams in the Pac-12 hate Larry Scott's guts. I mean, this is why the conference. Take no further look of why this conference is dead than the Heisman winning quarterback in your premier brand on what's supposed to be your best team in the opening week where there's not another ranked team playing at that time slot, and you're playing on the Pac-12 network. Are you kidding me? I mean, I'm sad about the Pac-12 too, but are you kidding me? Like, you have to get that game on a bigger network. It seems so simple to me, but it's a Pac-12's incompetence and probably like their last little bit of greediness going, oh, we're gonna milk this cow for everything we got. It's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, just you can't. And maybe part of it's what you said. They're just trying to. I don't know if they got offers to put it on different networks or whatever, but I just don't imagine Notre Dame, Texas, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio, any of those teams ever being playing at 6 o'clock and being put on the Big Ten network, the SEC network. I know a couple times Notre Dame has had games on Peacock, but even Peacock, everybody has. Like, there's USC is such a big school that I don't know that I'm sure they have a ton of alumni who don't live on the West Coast. It's a good school. They probably go. You probably have a ton that live in the East Coast in New York and Massachusetts and probably some in Atlanta and the Carolinas, wherever. And I don't even know how. I'm sure you can like download the app, but it's just bad. It's a bad look, and I think that's why they left. I don't even think it's they wanted more competition in the Big Ten or they are worried about it going to 2 super conferences. You just with how college football is changing and how much money is in it now, you cannot be USC and be on the Pac-12 network and getting more people are going to watch the New Mexico State Massachusetts game, which is literally 2 of the worst programs in Division One football. I know New Mexico State made a bowl game last year, but I don't even know if either
It's
one of those
terrible.
programs have a guy or have had a guy in the NFL. And USC
It's
has the most Heisman Trophy winners ever. So
it's it is ridiculous, and ridiculous is a word that I would describe my meme matchup of the week, because my meme matchup of the week is Hank Bachmeier's stat line versus Boise State Twitter. Because, oh boy, when that Louisiana Tech versus FIU game is going, I know there's a lot of people, as we mentioned before, we both went to Boise State, both well versed in the Twitter world of Boise athletics. People are going to be live tweeting every single snap of that game. And if you're Hank Bachmeier, you have to be the guy that was the 4-star recruit coming out. I mean, you anything less than a good performance. I mean, I don't even think he has to win the game to shut up haters. I think he needs a good performance, throwing the ball well, making good decisions. Because if he doesn't, the Shank Suckmeyer tweets are going to start flying again. And he's not going to be able to do anything about it. I mean, this Hank, he's just such an interesting quarterback, and he really does have all the talent in the world. And it's just like, if there's two words to describe Hank, it's missing link. It's like he's missing like that one thing. And I mean, the one thing that he's missing is mental aptitude, at least at Boise State. I mean, I'm hoping, and I'm sure he's hoping that the change of scenery kind of gets him straight. But no, Hank Bachmeier versus Boise State Twitter users is my meme matchup because it's going to be hilarious. Because imagine if he gets out there first drive, throws a couple good passes, and then like fumbles the ball. Oh my gosh, Boise
They're
Twitter's
going to
going to
lose
blow
their
up.
mind. And
Gonna,
well, you have the opposite side of that too, which I thought about this a little bit recently. If he comes out and because I will give him the benefit of the doubt here. I think he had 4 offensive coordinators. It was
yeah, no, it was
just
he's
he had
doing
the
a tough
COVID year
job.
that was he was, but eventually, if you're the guy, you make do with what you have, and that was he looked great in that first game he played against FSU. Was taking huge hits, threw for like 400 yards, I think, and it's just like from there it was just like this process of going down. But if he goes out there and does really, really well, and Boise State comes out next weekend and the offense looks
Mm.
bad, there's going to be a lot of people, I think, questioning whether it was Hank or whether it was
Andy.
our program right now, which I think, which I think is a fair, like they make no mistake. I think they had, which they weren't even going to make a change at quarterback here at Boise State last year. He left the team, but from what they said, he was going to be the starter going into San Diego State. And that's another thing is you have quarterbacks improving doesn't always happen. Like there are some guys who have
Yeah.
JT Daniels looked really good as freshman. They're more often than not, I feel like
Hey, watch
quarterbacks
out for Rice
that
this
started
year. Hey, whoa, the Rice Owls, watch out.
which yeah, that's his what is that his 4th team now?
Yeah,
3rd or 4th.
I think he still has like 2 or 3 eligible years too. I think.
But yeah, it's one of those quarterbacks don't always pan out and they might start off, oh, this guy's really good. He looks good. And it's never improve past that point. So I do hope for Hank Bachmeier that he comes out and plays really, really well and he has a good year. But and I think he's wearing number 20, so he cannot be playing bad wearing the number 20.
Yeah.
That makes you a meme if you go out there
Yeah.
wearing number 20 and throw like
No, I'm
3 interceptions.
yeah, I hope for the best for Hank. Like I honestly do. Like I do laugh at a lot of his failures, but because it is funny. But when you see someone who has played that well as a freshman kind of decline, you kind of wonder like something else is going on. So I think a fresh restart for him is needed.
Yeah, he definitely needed that. It was not, and it was so. It had turned so sour here that unless he played perfectly throughout the rest of his career, nothing was going to change how people felt about him, and that just all concluded with that UTEP game because I don't even think he had 100 yards passing, and you just by your junior season, or I guess it would have, his junior season, you cannot, no matter who's the offensive coordinator, what's going on the offense, play that bad as a Boise State quarterback, which is like a premier group of 5 program, like realistically still a borderline top 25 program against UTEP, who is a bottom 10 program in college football. So that one I'm going to be watching that game for, like you said, I'm interested to see how he does because if he comes out and throws for like 400 and something yards, I'm going to be like, well, I hope that it was just a change of scenery is all he needed and it wasn't stuff going like the game plan and stuff here at our school, like messing him up.
I hope so too. I hope so too. Yeah, no, yeah. Hank Bachmeier. We will see. Yeah, we are gonna end the show by doing another weekly segment that we're hoping to do. Weekly, if it goes well. Who knows, Zach? Who knows, Zooch? It's called High Low Buffalo. And it is so the High Low Buffalo, it's something that's good, obviously the high, something that's low is the low. And the buffalo just means it's interesting. It could be anything. So obviously, since this is our first episode, beginning of the season, we're doing high-low Buffalo teams going into this season. Um, and I'm gonna run through mine real quick, Zooch first. So my high team for the year, I think, is a team that's getting overlooked by a lot of people, and that's Mississippi State. This is a team that returns their starting quarterback who played very, very well last year. They also return a ton on defense and a ton on offense. But that's not only the reason why I have them as my high team. I'm going to pull up Mississippi State's schedule real quick. So their first game is at Southeast Louisiana, then Arizona. I think those are first two wins. Then you have LSU, Mississippi State, Alabama. Those are your two losses. After LSU and Alabama, there's no one on their schedule that I think is a complete wash. I mean, you have Mississippi, Southern Miss, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Auburn, Arkansas. Those are all winnable games. Those aren't, I mean, they're good teams, but they're not juggernauts by any means necessary. Like, so Mississippi State is my team. I think is going to outperform a lot of expectation, and especially because they're not even in the preseason AP poll. So I think that was a little bit disrespectful. I know the record last year for
And they
them
won
wasn't
what,
the
9
best.
games last year?
I mean, yeah,
They still
it's
won.
like it's not a double-digit win team. I think that's what throws the voters off a lot of the time. But yeah, it's I don't know why they weren't in the top 25, but I'm not an AP voter. My low team, and I'm going to fully preference my low team. This is a lot about of gut right here. It's a lot about gut, and it's a lot about schedule, and that's the Utah Utes. I maybe it's just me getting a little bit of Cam Rising in his stupid helmet that looks like a bubble on his head. It looks like a space. He looks like Neil Armstrong in that helmet. But I'm gonna pull up Utah. I mean, their schedule. They play all the Pac-12 hitters this year. They play Oregon State, USC, Washington, and Oregon. Those are just ranked teams because they have to play UCLA as well. I just don't see. I don't think they're gonna do bad per se. I just don't see a way for them winning the Pac-12 or even making the Pac-12 championship. I mean, I don't know if you want to touch on that, but
Yeah, they do have
I don't.
a really the Pac-12 is going to be tough and that's what makes them disbanding sad. Is it's like top to like maybe not top to bottom, but that the top half of that conference is really really good on paper at least. Like USC, Oregon, Oregon State, Utah. I think I'm forgetting somebody in there, but UCLA should be pretty decent. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, Utah's got a they have a tough
it's
schedule. So Kyle Whittingham normally seems to get the most out of them, but him getting the most out of them is them losing like 3 or 4 games and kind of sneaking into the Pac-12 title game. I know they've made the Rose Bowl twice in a year, but I think they've had like 3 or 4 losses both the past 2 years too. So it's not like they're
I
13
think
and
that's
1 or
part of
something
my
like
reason.
that.
It's just I don't think a three-loss team can win the Pac-12 with the talent this year. And my Buffalo team
Right.
for this upcoming season is the UCF Knights. You look at this preseason schedule, and besides Boise State, they're playing Villanova and Kent State. And then their fourth game is at Kansas State, all right? If they beat Kansas State, the rest of their Big 12 games, oh my goodness, they don't have to play, in my opinion, they don't have to play any of the big boys. They don't got to play TCU. They don't got to play Texas. I mean, they're I'm just looking at the schedule. They got Oklahoma State at home. They have Baylor at home. Oklahoma's going to be tough. Texas Tech's going to be tough, but you don't got to play TCU or Texas. And if the hardest team on your schedule, I love Boise State, if the hardest team in your preseason schedule is Boise State, UCF is prime to make a run. And I think in a Big 12 where
Oh
everyone's
yeah.
good and not great, I think a team like that can really, really make an impact.
And they have, they're a pretty good program. They were a little bit down last year, but that's the thing, it's a down year for them was still making the American Athletic Championship game. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
they were 4-8 last year. They won 9 or 10 games. So and they're returning John Reese Plumlee, right?
Yes,
Is
yes,
that
because
or started? I think that's
yes,
him.
yes, because he's the baseball player too.
Yeah, and he's dual threat, which we always know at the Big 12, like they struggle on defense. So that UCF game worries me too as a Boise State fan because I think they're going to be pretty good. I don't know that they'll go unbeaten or anything like that, but I think they are a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. Like you said, I have my three teams for high, low, Buffalo. Starting with high, I have Miami. I don't know. I'm not saying that Miami's going to be early 2000s Miami, but I'm just going to read you off their schedule. So Miami of Ohio to start out, then they play at A&M, and then before they play Clemson, they play Bethune-Cookman, Temple, Georgia Tech, North Carolina. So I think there's a huge chance that they're undefeated going into that Clemson game. We don't know how Clemson's going to be. That's another team that's like down, so it means they're going 10-2. But, and this was almost my high team, but they have a little bit more hype than Miami. Then they play Virginia, North Carolina State, and then FSU. I think that Miami FSU game could realistically be like a playoff eliminator for one of those teams because after that they play Louisville and Boston College. They could. If they're bad, obviously they could lose any of those games. But it's not a tough schedule. Like even if they can win one of those FSU or Clemson games, I think they have a good shot of winning the ACC and being close to the playoff. Like who knows how the playoff will shake out? There's normally not everyone's undefeated. I guess if everyone is undefeated, they wouldn't get in. But I really think they could be a top 10 team if, Tyler Van Dyke improves, if Mario Cristobal, which he seems like he's a pretty good coach, can get his commits in there. I think they had like the 7th rated recruiting class, so pretty high up there.
And I think if you're
I think they're
Miami,
going to be pretty
I think if you're Miami, you don't like college football playoff. You don't even need that. I think just a New Year's Six berth counts as an A+ win for this season.
right. They just need to start improving because they're another program that when they're good, I think it makes football better personally. For my low, and it's not that I think this team is going to be bad, but Tennessee won 11 games last year. Won the Orange Bowl.
Don't tell Big Vol Daddy. Don't tell Big Vol Daddy.
And break his heart. I think if they were like
break his
threatening
leg,
like getting into the playoffs, I'm pretty sure because USC ended up losing to Utah, they probably would have gotten in over TCU if they hadn't lost that game to South Carolina. So they were like bordering making the playoffs, but they have a new quarterback. We'll see if their defense kind of got shredded in the secondary times last year. Like Georgia beat them up pretty bad. Alabama, they had to win that game 52-49. Spencer Rattler put up 63 points on them, so that's definitely an issue they needed to address.
I had the biggest smile on my face because I was just waiting for that South Carolina game mentioned last year because it was almost like I was in shock. I was shocked watching that game because it was kind of like one of those out of nowhere, like, isn't this supposed to be like the second best team in the SEC behind Georgia? And you got Spencer Rattler, who's kind of been high and low all year. And it was almost Spencer Rattler's coming out party last year. So I'll let you. I mean,
yeah, and South Carolina was coming off of a loss to Florida where they scored like 7 points or something like that. And Florida didn't make a bowl game last year. So it was extremely weird that they put up 63 on Tennessee. And I know Hendon Hooker got hurt the next game, I think. Maybe he did play that game. I don't remember exactly. But regardless, if they won that game, they are probably going to make the college football playoff. Orange Bowl is still pretty good for a program who had been very bad since like 2003. I think they had 1 or 2 good seasons in between there, but not what their fans expect. For my Buffalo, there's not a more interesting team coming into this year than the Colorado Buffaloes with Deion Sanders.
The literal Buffalo. You took the literal Buffalo pick.
I took the literal Buffalo. I don't even remember the last time I thought about Colorado, and like I would see him and be like, geez, I can't believe they're so bad. Like big university, nice facilities. I know it's cold there, but great school. Like you would think they would be better than 1-11 like every year. That being said, him coming there and all the chaos he's created, whether people agree with it or not, have made them very interesting. Because if he comes in this year, like what happens if he comes in and wins 9 games? Like
I mean,
if I was a
if
recruit,
he
I
comes
would
in and wins 9 games, I'll buy a Colorado T-shirt because I think a win for Colorado this year is getting bowl eligible.
see, and that's fair. Like I get he replaced a lot of people. But I think it's going to be interesting. Like, if he wins that TCU game, do you think they're in the top 25? Do you think
Hundred
people
percent,
put them in the
hundred
top
percent,
25?
100%, hundred
Okay.
percent. And the hype train is going to be off the chain because like, yeah, if he beats TCU, their what's their second game on their schedule? I'm gonna. Do you have their schedule pulled up?
I'll pull it up real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Their second game.
Also, for the people watching, I finally found the USC decoy there, Alex Grinch. So if you were sweating on that one,
That's
it's
his
Alex
name.
Grinch.
And he's supposed to be good every year and just never, ever improves. So I think they might play Colorado State after that.
That's what I was thinking. So that they're gonna win.
Oh, no, it's
I think
Nebraska. Okay, so they play. If they, so
yeah. So
they have
TCU, Nebraska,
TCU,
Colorado
Nebraska,
State.
Colorado State. So if they won those 3 games, right? If they beat TCU, Nebraska, Colorado State, their next game is against Oregon.
And that's
That
full
is going to
blown
be
hype.
a hugely hyped game.
Yeah,
And it's like if for some reason, like, and I don't know that they'll win all those. Like I said, he brought in a lot of new people. I think Shadur Sanders is good, but he was playing at the FCS level last year, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's like is good there, with his credentials, like played in the NFL, played pro baseball, huge name, he's going to start really getting some even bigger recruits. Like he had a great transfer class because it was a little bit
He's
late in
gonna
the
get some.
regular season.
I think he can get some heads too because they're in the Big 12 now. So like the southwest reach of Texas is bigger. I mean, he can do some serious damage if he can muster some hype this year. I mean, this is
Right, and
in Colorado. People forget across the country how much money is at that school already when their athletic programs are terrible. If that football program is even a fraction of what it was in the 90s, or even if it's like what it was, remember that one random year in the Pac-12 where they made the championship game? If it's even like that, it's like this is like people talk about sleeping giants in college football. I mean, I'm biased. I've been a West Coast college football guy my whole life, but Colorado is a sleeping giant. It has got so much money. They've got a huge alumni base. They got all the facilities. Now they got their coach. It's just time for them to put it together.
Yeah, and if they do, it's gonna be, and he's a master. Like I don't know how much day to day. Like I don't know if he's. And I would see. I've worked with head coaches that have gone around to each individual group and teach something, and others that are like a CEO. He is a master salesperson. Like everything he does is to like build his brand. Like he lets the players wear their like their Twitter names or Instagram names on their jerseys. But that to me, and I know some people look at that and are like, "Oh my god, like why do they need to let these kids do that?" That's a smart recruiting ploy. He's like saying,
Mm-hmm.
come here. You're only going to start if you're good, which is basically what he told all those guys in that video that we were laughing at however many months ago, where everyone in that room, their face looked like they just been told their mom died.
Yeah,
But like I get that from him. Like
the kid in the scooter boot.
And he said, some of you just need to leave now because you're not going to play, and we're going to make you try and quit. A lot of people took offense to that, but they won one game, and like that to me, with what you said, huge alumni base, nice facilities, nice place to live, good school, nice field. There's no reason for them to ever be 1-11. Like if I get UMass going 1-11, but Colorado has being Boise State fans, we would kill to have that money pouring into our program. Like I would do almost anything to get even a fraction of that money. So I think they are that's one of the games I'm I'm going to the Boise State Washington game, but week 1, I'm really looking forward to that TCU game. If anything else, just to see him on the sideline with the cowboy hat
Yeah.
and like all of his antics. To me it makes the
Mm-hmm.
sport better. So
It does. And yeah, we will see. Yeah, that's it for us. Zooch, any final words of encouragement before next week's show?
just get ready for that FIU Louisiana Tech. Like that's what we have to look forward to. But we both know we're going to be watching that game. I've been counting down the days, and I cannot wait for Notre Dame Navy. It starts at like 11:30, I think, and after that, there's just like little itty bitty games in between. I'll have to look on the Game Center app or whatever it's called on ESPN to keep up with USC. But I will watch that UMass New Mexico State game just to see what's going on, just to see if there's over 200 yards of offense in the whole game.
Oh man, that is funny. Well, we want to thank everyone for listening who has listened. Next week, hopefully, we'll get a little Zooch's pre-thoughts before he goes to the Washington game. Because if I caught that, you're going to the Washington game in Seattle.
Yep, we're gonna leave. I took off work next Friday. We're gonna leave bright and early. Me, my girlfriend, and a couple other friends are gonna go. Get down there, and I just want to I want to see the greatest setting in college football be filled with tears of obnoxious wannabe USC Washington Husky fans.
Awesome. Well,
that is one team that I do since I moved out here. I don't like Washington.
Bro. You don't like the sailgating?
I don't like just they seem pompous to me for a team who hasn't done anything in 900 years. So I would like to beat them, but we'll talk more about it next week, and I'll say if I think we're going to beat them.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, again, thank you everyone listening. Next week we'll get into what a lot of you would call the real games, and we'll get into Zooch's opinions before he makes the caravan to Seattle. So thank you all, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.